start with the announcements.
Okay, so thank you guys for attending today. Thank you, Joseph. Um, for the quick reminder and announcement, for the workbooks and survey, the deadline will be up until Friday at 5 p.m. But we really encourage you guys to submit it today during class if we can, or at least tomorrow, so you don't have to think about submitting for the rest of the week. And also, we have an upcoming field trip this coming November 16, but the RSVP is until November 8th. So we will send it through the Zoom chat. You can RSVP now as well. And the event will be on November 16. Again, we encourage you guys to RSVP before anything because we will cap the event at 160 students. So we would like to invite you guys because this will be a field trip where you would meet a lot of professionals and different career paths. So this will give you a chance to meet professionals and also ask them questions and discover new paths like you're not aware of yet. So that's it, Joseph. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Happy Wednesday. It's good to see y'all. Thank you for coming to class, despite there being a Dodgers game happening right now, kicking off a couple minutes ago. Um, Shows your dedication to this. I hope that you're super excited to learn today. I have a really cool class for y'all. But let me just set things up and then we will get going. All right, let's. All right, cool. So as always, my goal is to make sure that you all can go and complete your workbooks by the end of this class, or at least have enough time to get most of it done. So if you have your workbook or submission form looks like this, take it out because we will be going through question by question, making sure that you have something to be able to put in there. And yeah, so this is week number 9. We've talked through a number of different things like vision and goals and feeling better and being able to have positive self-talk. I'd love to get a sense from a couple of you on how this is going. How have you been applying it to your life? What's been something that's new for you or anything like that? So maybe I can have Alyssa. Where have you been applying anything that you've learned across these past 9 weeks in your life?
I've really been working on like mindset recently about how like having a positive mindset will actually change like the results of my actions. And just like with the homework that I've been having, a lot of tests and then also like applications, I've been trying to keep that positive mindset so that I can like turn everything in on time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely keeping a positive mindset, positive self-talk, super critical. Glad to hear that you're applying it to your life. Um, Dana, how about you? How have you been applying these past couple lessons to your life?
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of positive stuff and like emphasizing a lot of the goals. So a new habit that I picked up was like having like a little sticky note and like having it attached to my laptop with like all of the assignments I have for the week. That way I can like visually see what I have coming up. I get everything done on time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Writing things down, things that you need to do, that's something that we learned in goals. And so in that, great job for applying it to your life. I'm sure every single one of you, if I were to ask, you've been doing it in some way in your life. But I want to move us along because we're going to change up the format a little bit. Um, and talk about more things this week around decision making. And so I got a video for you, and I want to play it and give you a little teaser into what we're going to talk about.
All the most successful people that I meet are really fast decision makers. They don't care if they make the right or the wrong decision. They just make a decision. Yes, Natalia? That's right. The only wrong decision is indecision. Because guess what? At the end of the day, there is no such thing as a wrong decision. Because even if you don't get the outcome that you desire, you're going to get growth. You're going to get an experience that you needed to be better, to do it better next time. I'm so grateful for all the wrong decisions I ever made, because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. So make a frickin' decision.
All right, y'all. Today we're talking about decision making. I don't know about you, but I have a ton of decisions to make in my life, and I would guess that most of you have some sort of decisions to make in your life too. For me, one of the things of an important decision I made in my life early on was trying to figure out what college to go to. How many of you are trying to figure out, or will be in a position to figure out what college y'all go to in the coming months? Can I get a show of hands? Great. That's awesome. I hope that's all of you in the next couple of months trying to figure that out. And so I had the opportunity to decide between UC Berkeley and UCLA, and I was really frustrated with not knowing how to make this decision. I spent up to the last day I could trying to think about what to do. And at the end of the day, I eventually decided to go to UC Berkeley, as I've told you. And so in my mind, like I wasn't sure how to make this decision. And so I was asking my friends and also my teachers and then like some older people that I knew. And one of my teachers was really influential in my life who told me to like pursue a place that I could grow. And so I felt in my heart that I was really excited about UCLA, about staying in LA. I loved LA. And I thought that that was going to be the place that I should go to. But I also realized that I was so comfortable in LA, which is why I loved it. And I didn't really like getting outside of my comfort zone. And so when I looked at what I wanted to do with my life and thinking that this might be one of the only chances in my life to like leave LA and try something new and get out of my comfort zone, I decided to go to Berkeley. And so in that, it was one of the most important decisions I had made up until that point in my life, and arguably one of the most important decisions I've made thus far, because eventually led me to you champions and you all with a long story short. But in that, we're going to talk about decision making today and how to make tough decisions, hard decisions, or decisions in general, and battling things that battling indecision in general. So, in that, I want you to think about what is an important choice you have to make right now. And you have in your workbooks or in your submission form this question. Go ahead and uh, go ahead and write that down in there. You don't need to put it in the chat because we're going to break out into breakout rooms in a second just to share that. But I want you to take 30 seconds to think about what is an important choice you have to make right now. Write it in your workbook, and then I'll ask to break out into rooms. But let's take 30 seconds for y'all to think first. Okay, I hope you had enough time to think about something that you need to make an important decision on. We're going to break out into breakout rooms for about 4 to 5 minutes. I want you to share this important decision with the folks in the breakout room and a little bit of why. And if you all run out of time, share one thing that you're looking forward to um, in, in this week. So let's go into breakout rooms and see how that goes.
All right, sorry. Hi, Dan.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully that was fun for y'all to talk to each other for a little bit. We're gonna try to break things up and see how this goes. But yeah, I'm really curious to hear if there's any themes that you heard in your breakout rooms as to the decisions that people need to make. I'm curious to hear maybe from Jennifer's room. were there any themes of the decisions that y'all needed to make?
Yeah, I think we all are focusing on college right now.
Yeah, I feel that. Um, how about Kimberly? Any themes in your room? If you're in the same room, just let me know too.
We basically taught, well, the students in my class, in my group, talked about making a decision on what college they would want to attend.
Yeah, that was a lot of my group too. And so figuring out where to go for college is a huge decision that has many different factors, from family to finances to so many other things that it could be. And so I'm hoping that by the end of today's conversation that you would walk away with more tools to be able to make some decisions in a meaningful and good way. And so let's talk about where we're headed. I'd love to get some help reading these bullet points. There's six. So how about Oscar, if you can read the first three, and maybe Michael, you can read the next three. Oscar, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. Understanding decision paralysis. Explore the sorry. Uh, psychological basis and real life impact decisions paralysis caused by too many options. Prior, pri- Sorry, I cannot read today. Prioritizing your values. Learn how identifying and prioritizing personal values can streamline decision making and align choices with what truly matters. Setting clear criteria and boundaries. Discover techniques to establish clear criteria and boundaries to simplify choices and reduce decision fatigue.
Embracing imperfection, understand the importance of making good enough decisions and learn strategies to embrace imperfection and learn from mistakes. Practical exercises, engage in reflective exercises, group discussions, and practical activities to apply the concepts and techniques in real life scenarios. Interactive learning, participate in breakout room discussions to share experiences, insights, and strategies for overcoming indecision and making confident choices.
Awesome. Yeah. Decision paralysis, being able to prioritize the right things to make decisions. We're going to dive into a lot of that today. Um, we also have the preview as to what we're going to talk about. Um, Evelyn, do you mind reading the first paragraph, and then Lisbeth, maybe the second paragraph?
Imagine standing in a cereal aisle of your local grocery store, staring at dozens of different boxes, each promising to be the best choice. Minutes turn into what feels like hours, and suddenly you find yourself overwhelmed by the sheer number of options. This scenario might seem um, vertical, but it perfectly illustrates a common challenge we all face: decision paralysis. Whether it's choosing a career path, selecting a university, or even deciding what to have for dinner, the struggle with indecisions can leave us feeling stuck and anxious.
In our class on battling indecision, we will dive into the root causes of this common issue and equip you with practical tools to navigate it effectively. You'll learn to prioritize your values, set clear criteria, and embrace imperfections in your decision-making process. Through interactive decisions and hands-on exercises, you'll gain the confidence to make decisions swiftly and effectively, turning uncertainty into opportunity. Don't let indecision hold you back. Join us and take the first step towards mastering the art of decision making.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for reading and helping me out here and helping all of us here. I want to give you guys 20 seconds to just read this for yourself again. And I'm curious to hear from some of you on what stuck out in this. All right. Maybe Sarah, I'm curious to hear from you, like what stuck out for you in this?
For me, I think what stuck out is kind of like comparing like all these decisions, but kind of like leveling them the same. Like it doesn't matter like what indecision you have, they're all kind of gonna give you the same feeling. And what also stuck out to me was just like the hands-on exercises. Like I'm kind of curious on like what can be done to like solve this feeling.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna do some exercises throughout this to give you a sense on what tools that we can use to help with the feelings of decision fatigue. But thank you for sharing. That was awesome. Do you mind choosing someone of one of your peers to share next?
Katie.
For me, what kind of stuck out was like the part where it says decision paralysis, because it's like a feeling that I kind of get like too. Like it's like I guess the fact that like your decision could be wrong and then like not being like okay with that, I guess. And then also the part where it says like that we will be learning about like how to prioritize like our values and stuff, because I feel like that's something that I have to do when I make my like decisions as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so decision fatigue is real. There's tons of things that we have to decide every day. And we need ways to be able to filter through that. And so I'm super excited to share some of ways to do that and some realizations of what's coming at you in the world that might make decision making hard. And so we're going to talk about choice, but I'm curious to hear from you. Um, how many of you think that having more choice is better, or how many of you think having less choice is better? I want you to go into the chat room, and if you think having more choice is better, put more, and if you think having less choice is better, put less. All right, a lot of mores. That's awesome. Having more decision kind of makes sense than having less decision, but we're going to talk about the paradox of choice. And so I think having more than one decision to make or more than one choice is good. But there is a point where when you have too many choices, it actually has a negative effect. It's the law of diminishing returns, where the more decisions or more choice you have, the more choices that you have, the less happier that you are. And it's actually the case that less is more, and too much choice is actually stressful. And so, decision fatigue, as we sort of discussed in the preview, is the idea that mental exhaustion comes from making too many decisions or facing too many complex choices. So as the day goes on, as you make more and more decisions, your quality decisions actually go down. Like you make worse decisions as the day progresses. And so in that, the paradox of choice is that while it seems more beneficial to have more, it actually having more choice actually leads to longer decision times where you're trying to find maybe the perfect choice, not the good one, which slows you down. Increased anxiety, where you have too many options, which can overwhelm you and lead to anxiety and self-doubt that you're making the right choice. Inaction, where you're just like, oh, there's so many choices, they're all decent, but which one is the one that I should make? I don't know, and I make no choice. And overall decreased satisfaction because you feel like you made a good choice, but you keep on second guessing that maybe there was something better out there. And so in that, when you have too many choices, it can actually be too stressful. And so you may want to narrow those things down so you have the right amount of choice to make a good decision. And so I want you to go into your workbooks and I want you to take maybe 20 to 30 seconds to write out what are some of the reasons you're having uh, difficulty making the choice in your submission form. So list out some of the reasons you're having difficulty making a decision in your submission form. All right, hope you wrote some things down. We'll take a look at that again eventually. But I also want you to all go into the chat. And I'm curious to hear from y'all, like, do you feel like you have the tools you need to make tough decisions? Um, every answer is valid. I'm curious to hear what y'all got. All right. That's great that y'all feel like most of y'all feel like you have somewhat of a tool set to be able to make some tough decisions. And if you don't, and you don't feel confident in that, you're going to walk away from today's class having some of those. And so I'm very excited to teach you some tips and tricks on how to make decisions. And so there are some practical things that we can talk about in steps of making decisions. And so one, as I talked about a couple minutes ago around this idea of decision fatigue and this paradox of choice, if you have 50 colleges that you are trying to decide over, you should really try to limit your options. And there are a couple ways to limit your options that we'll talk about later on. But one thing that the preview did talk about that excited some of you is using your values. So in week one, in being able to set a vision, we talked about values a little bit. And this is a great place to start. If you set your values in advance, it may help when a decision comes up. For example, if your values are studying, hanging out with friends, and earning money in that priority, it can make it easier when it comes to something like a Saturday afternoon where you might have the options to study math, English, science, go to the mall, watch a movie, go to the park, pick up a shift for your job, do an interview, or just something else, play video games. If you prioritize studying, hanging out, and earning money in that order, you're probably going to make the decision to study or at least pare them down to what you can study. And so if you have a good idea of the things that you value, like when you're trying to pick college, like is it close to home to your family? Is it financially attainable to be able to go with limited debt? These are things that you value that you can use as a decision-making criteria to limit your options. Giving yourself a time limit. This is the idea of saying, I need to make a decision on where to apply to by this specific date. Sometimes there are deadlines that help you get to that. And sometimes you can take the time and like all the time in your life to decide. Like, for example, I'm trying to figure out what business to start. No one's telling me to start a business besides myself, but I want to have a goal of deciding by the end of this month what business I want to start so I can start. And in that, you also want to break down a big decision into maybe smaller decisions. Like, for example, if you're trying to decide what college to go to or how to finance college, like you can go and take research into like, should I get a loan? Should I be able to pay out of pocket? And that can be the first point, just doing research, to be able to become more informed of the bigger decision that you need to make. And so chances are big things in your life come down to smaller incremental things, and being able to make a decision comes down to breaking it down into smaller things that are more digestible versus trying to bite off more than you can chew at a given moment. And so, based on the practical steps that we just talked about, look at the choices that you listed in the question that we just went through before going through this segment. Choose one of these practical steps and write out how you might choose to apply it to your current decision. So here are the steps that you can use. Take a look at why you might be having difficulties making decisions and seeing in that main decision that you're trying to make if any of these things help you in that. I'm going to give you 20 more seconds to think about it. All right. I'm curious to hear from one of you, like which one of these things would you apply and why? Um, Brenda, I'm curious to hear from you.
So my decision that I need to make is to like see what colleges I want to apply to next year, not this year, next year. So for me, I wouldn't really like say a time limit because that's kind of still far away from here. What I would do first is limit my options.
Yeah, that's great. If a time limit doesn't make sense right now, limiting your options from the thousands of colleges in the world is a great place to start. So, great application of that. Super happy that you're thinking about college as well. And I hope that you start paring it down to find one that you really want to narrow in on. Um, all right, y'all. Let's talk about a couple more tools. And these are called decision-making frameworks. These are just ideas that you can apply a little bit more concretely or a little bit more nuanced than some of the other things that we just talked about. So let's talk about the pros and cons list first. And so let's say that you're trying to figure out, okay, you want to make a decision and you have a couple of things that really matter to you and you're trying to weigh the pros and cons against school A, B, and C. You can write out a pros and cons list to be able to really see if there are more pros that really entice you or there are more cons, and really have somewhat of an objective way, like getting outside of yourself to really take a look on paper how things compare to one another and why you might want to do one thing like pick school A over school B. I think most of you are pretty familiar with pros and cons lists in your life, or it's the most easiest to conceptually get. The next one is a little bit more complex. It's called a decision matrix, where you are writing down the criteria or the value of what you uh, of what you of a particular decision. Like if you're trying to decide for college, you might think about the cost. You might think about how big the campus is or how big the university is by population size. You might think about where it is, what type of majors like exist, and if they entice you. You might like smaller classes, so the professor to student ratio might be important to you. And then you can go through and score each of the options that you have, and for example, college options 1, 2, and 3, and really list down on a scale from 1 to 10. Or you can actually weight these things. Like, for example, you want to give like cost, for example, is the most critical thing that you think about. So you think that you have 6 points to give and you want to give 1 to college 1 and 5 to college 2. The math doesn't make sense here, but the idea is to really weigh the value and take those points um, and associate it with the different options that you have to be able to have a more metric driven way to figure out how each of these options really level up to what matters most to you. And so this is just another way to, if you're a more mathy or more like objective person and you want some sort of way to score it, this is one way to score how to make a decision. The next one is probably the most complex one. It's called a Pareto analysis, or better known as the 80-20 rule. The idea here is that 80% of your impact will come from 20% of the things that you may do. And so it's basically saying that if you target the 20% of things that really matter, you're going to get 80% of your benefit from there. And so if you were to go and take a look at particularly if you are, for me, like I'm trying to start my own business and I'm thinking about maybe like if I have a business one day, where should I invest the next amount of things to do? And so I'm going to use the Pareto analysis to say that where are my customers really concerned? And like the design and the sustainability of the product, it doesn't really get a lot of concern, but I have a lot of concern around the quality and maybe even the service of it. And so if I am really judging like the 7 different ways that I'm trying to evaluate where my customers are concerned, and let's say that the 20% of the concern is really around quality, service, and price, I'm going to focus on really fixing these things, which is going to get me 80% of addressing what's wrong with what my customers' concerns are. And very similarly, you can take this and say, for a college that you're deciding, I really care about like cost. And if I really get cost and like proximity to home down, everything else is like, doesn't really, is not as a big of a deal. And it's really being able to use that to help you make a good decision, even though it may not be a perfect decision. And that's where you can really use this 80-20 rule. And so these are a couple of tools that you can use as well. And so I want you to go back to your workbook and return to the decision that you wrote in the beginning. And I'm curious to hear for you to think through which one of these options apply most to your particular decision, or which one of these options can you use, and write out which one and why. And so take a look at the frameworks here and think about which one of these things might be most helpful for you to use. I'm going to give you 20 more seconds. All right. I'm curious to hear from some of you. Which one of these things would you want to apply? Elizabeth, which one of these might you apply to the decision that you need to make?
So my decision was like regarding like colleges, and I said that the one that fits best for my decision is pros and cons, because I kind of like keeping it simple. So I feel like if I know the amount of pros and the amount of cons, it'd be easier for me to make a decision based off that.
Yeah, that makes ton of sense. I think pros and cons list is the simplest one here to use. So I think you're spot on. What about you, Christopher? Which one of these things make most sense to you to use in your decision that you need to make?
For me, probably the waiting one because I'm able to weigh the better decision for college, like which college I'm gonna go to.
Yeah, definitely. I think a decision matrix is a great tool to use when trying to take a more objective stance and weigh things against each other, um, and really get to a number at the bottom and see which number is the best to move forward with. But yeah, great use of that. Hopefully, one of these tools will come in handy in the decisions that you need to make in the future. I've definitely used a couple of these in my life as well. And so the last thing I want to talk about is really shifting your mindset to embrace decisions. And so you're going to have to embrace a couple of things because life isn't perfect. And you're going to have to embrace uncertainty because you're never going to have all the information that you need to make the perfect decision. And so know that, not everything is going to be the best. You might not know everything, and that's okay to have things still be uncertain and still move forward. I think embracing imperfection is going to be key as well, where perfect can often be the enemy of progress and good. And so changing your target from being perfect to being good enough can help out decision paralysis, where chances are if you are able to make a quick decision that's good, that's better than making no decision. And if you do make a bad decision, you really need to embrace the bad too, because you're not perfect. We're all human and we've all failed. And so, as we talked about in the Failing Better class, failure is a part of success. And so it's just part of the stepping stone to getting to the place where you really are meant to be, which is success. And so sometimes you're going to make bad decisions, but embracing that as a part of the learning process is best. You're just one step closer to an easier and better decision that you're about to make. And so we're all failures here. We don't need to shy away and try to be perfect. And so in that, we all know, since we've learned how to be resilient and to recover from failure with positive self-talk, that we can make decisions quickly and are able to move forward quickly as well. And so in that, I want you to go to the last question, and I want you to think about a time when you made a bad decision that turned out to be a decision that turned out to be a bad one. And what did you learn from it? And so take 30 seconds to think about that. All right. Um, as I mentioned before, every single one of us has made a bad decision, and this is a safe place. And so I want you all to go into breakout rooms, and I want you to share this question or the response to this question with your peers. And so be a little vulnerable with one another. We're not perfect, but being able to share this is going to be pretty good and encouraging, I think. And so here's what I recommend for breakout rooms. So the leader of the breakout room is going to be the person whose name is closest to Jay. And so if your name is closest to Jay, like you are the leader, you are meant to kick off the conversation by sharing your response first and then popcorning to someone in the room. Just choose someone else in your breakout room to share their response, and that person can popcorn to the next person. And the leader will share the insights with the group afterwards. And if you have remaining time, share something that you're excited about in your life, and ask each other that question on popcorn again. And so first, share the last question that we went through around what's a bad decision you've made and what did you learn from it? And are we ready for a break? All right, welcome back, everybody.
Apologies for that,
Hopefully,
Joseph.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. I forgot to tell you how long to put on the clock, but hopefully I didn't cut anybody off in their exciting sharings. Um, I joined some of the breakout rooms. I hopped through them. It was really cool to hear some of the things that y'all shared. I'm curious to hear um, how some of the discussions went. And so maybe we'll start with Jennifer's group because your name starts with J, and I know that you're probably the leader of that group then.
Hi, yeah. So I said that one like bad decision that I took was starting my financial aid like late, which like set me back. And I learned that I need to set reminders for myself like on my phone so that somebody like tells me or like my phone tells me and reminds me.
Yeah, I think that's awesome to be able to reflect and understand what you could have done better and what to learn from that. It's super encouraging to hear that you recovered from your bad decision, and nothing is so catastrophic that you can't recover from it. And so Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Who was another leader in another breakout room?
Ren, you can go ahead and call in someone or someone who would like to volunteer in our group.
It's our group. It's Jennifer from our group.
I can go. I was a leader for one of my group. So in our group, what we talked about, like what mostly everybody agreed on, was like kind of like time management and like studying habits that a lot of us have been struggling to time manage our well just manage our time basically. And like that's what's like affecting our like school performance and like our tests because we're sometimes we prioritize one thing or like we don't dedicate enough time, so like it like affects how we perform in tests and like our schoolwork basically.
Yeah, procrastination is a lesson that I think y'all will continue to learn forever. I continue to learn the lessons of procrastination as well. But I have gotten better at it, and I think as y'all go through life, you will find ways to make that less of a problem. And usually deadlines do help. And so thank you for sharing that. And I'm really encouraged that y'all are reflective in that way. Who is the last leader of the last breakout room to share?
Then was that your room, Dan?
I can share
All right,
from my group.
go for it, Andrea.
So I think like an overall summary for my group was that recap was correlated and it's kind of more coordinated with the type of habits that we developed. For example, when my group mates were talking about how her environment started to influence how she would complete her assignments, and the rest of us, I guess, kind of talked about not listening to our body limits.
Well, I think we lost Andrea,
Yeah, I
but
lost her.
yeah,
She'll be back.
she'll be back. I think that all of us have made some interesting decisions that we all can learn from. I certainly have as well. And so I want you all to take a minute. There's a recap section in your workbook to just write down something that you've learned from this particular class. So take like 40 more seconds to write down something so you can finish up your workbook. All right, y'all. We made it. We made it to the end. Y'all have finished your workbooks. Hopefully, I've given you enough time to be able to do that. Um, Next week, we'll be talking about an exciting topic, almost similar to what we talked about maybe 2 weeks ago around how money works. We're going to build on top of those concepts and talk about how banking, credit, debt all work together to be able for you to get a better understanding on how money continues to be able to work for you and how to avoid some of the pitfalls of money management. But hopefully through this class, you learned a little bit more about being able to battle indecision, and you're excited to embrace whatever comes your way and make some good ones in the future. So, Den, I'd like to turn it back to you to share some of the announcements, and close out the class. Or Sheila.
All right. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do the announcement. Thank you so much, Joseph, for such a great class. And thank you, everyone, for coming in. We really do appreciate you guys taking the time to attend one of these classes and then learning a new topic here with you champions. So I really do hope you learned a lot from this. So thank you very much. So for the announcement, guys, for the workbook and surveys, I know we said you have to submit it by Friday, 5 p.m., but we really do highly, highly encourage you to submit it today or tonight, hopefully, so that you won't even have to think about it all week. And you know, this will take you this time of like this part of like workbook and stuff. This will take it off your plate. So please do answer the workbook and the surveys. And yeah, today, hopefully, if you can. So the next one will be the Ignite conference that we will have. It's actually a field trip, guys. We will have it on November 16. The deadline for the RSVP would be November 8, so 5 p.m. So we really do highly, highly encourage you to go to this field trip because you're actually going to learn a lot about careers that you do not know about. You will also learn how to make learn how to make better career choices, and you will also earn 4 points. So if you have 22 points already plus 4, you will already earn $300 here in this program. So it's a very big jump. From 200 you will be at 300. So it's a very, very big jump of your points, guys. And you will also get money by going to this field trip. So please do come to this field trip, and we really are expecting you to RSVP on the link below. So I think that's it for me, and thank you, Joseph. Thank you, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
y'all.
Bye, everyone.